ほらほらほら。あ、来た。
被害に遭うんじゃん、裏の家。
A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the gray skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dampened more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads and prompted dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The rail runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. Experts warn that such events are becoming more frequent due to climate change, especially in the southern Europe. Palermo Major Robert Lalacalla called the government assistant, say this is no longer a seasonal storm. This is a climate emergency. We need to urgent investment in infrastructure and prevention. No casualties have been confirmed, but dozens of people have been received medical attention and injured in the shock. The Italian government has promised to assess the damage and provide funds to clean up in the coming days. Sicily is beginning a lightly clean up. The storm is stark reminder of increasing unpredictability of nature in the face of global warming. In Messina, landslides blocked major highway, isolated several mountains village. Farmers in Surrey reported several damaged crops with the olive groves and a vineyard underwater. One of the local farmers, Antonio Bellini, said, "We have lost half of our harvest. We haven't seen rain like this in 40 years." Temporary shelters were stopped in community center and church for families who were forced to leave their homes. Volunteers are working around the clock to distribute food, blankets of our necessities. Meanwhile, firefighters from all over Italy were sent to reinforce refuse force. Social media is flooded with the images and dramatic rescue operations. Children begin lifted from rooftops, elderly people begin to carry out throughout the waist deep water, and pain being saved from the daunting. The hashtag Sicilia Scotta Aqua were become popular throughout the country. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed solidarity with the region, promised no community will be left without the help. "We will rebuild our support every affected family." Experts warn that the Mediterranean region is becoming increasingly vulnerable to such storm. In the recent report by European Environmental Agency, Sicily was identified as a climate hotspot facing rising sea levels, heat waves and now extreme rainfall. As the sky begins to clear, attention turned to recover. Damage assessment, no ongoing to questions are being raised about the urban planning, drainage system and early warning protocols. But for many Sicilians, healing will take no longer. As Giulia Emilia-Romagna, whose home was destroyed, said with the tears here, "Years. We survived but now lost everything. Now we have started all over again." Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the burst of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the latest rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural area alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggle to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes, and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas. Coastal town in rural village in Sicily have experienced some of the worst damage. The agriculture sector, which is crucial in the island economy, have been hit hard, with the fields and cars destroyed in the rising waters. Landslides have cut off aces of several mountains regions, complicating rescue efforts. The situation remains real, with the emergency crew working around the clock to respond to new incidents and then arise. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern region of the country. Torrential downpours have caused rivers to swell, burst their banks, and inundate towns and villages. The latest episode of flooding have left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy, and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported, with the roads submerged, bridges washed away, and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po and the Rio, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency services to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads, and isolated communities. In Venice, a city all too familiar, and the high water level flood definitions were put on the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the crisis from the rising test were activities sheltered the Venice from significant damage. However, other areas of the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in the Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to higher ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in several regions, mobilizing rescue workers to deploy to army to assist in evacuation efforts. Civil protection authorities have urged people to affected areas to remain cautious to offshore warning as more rain forecast in the coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in the affected areas, expressing her solidarity with the victims and pledging government support to reconstruction efforts. This is national emergency, and we are working closely to local authorities to ensure the safety for all residents, she said. Climate experts that such extreme weather events could become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, particularly vulnerable to affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, poor mountain infrastructure, and urban expansion into flood-prone areas has exacerbated the impact of recent storms.
会飞出来呀、你睇，哇，太好！
In the second turn of event, Italy was thrown into chaos as a Versa storm wreaked havoc across the picturesque landscape of Sicily and Rome. The unrelated tempest, reminiscent of a scene of Dante's Inferno, left a trail of destruction in its wake, testing the resilience of these Italian people and their determination of republic their beloved cities. Sicily, now in the straddling Mediterranean coastal line and historic Kerm, is almost hardest hit by violent tempest. The island, unusually a sure weather, were caught in the turbulent sea of fury, pouring the curse and related force. Torrential rain, accompanied by gale force wind, battered the region, caused widespread flooding, triggering landscape and uprooted centuries-old trees. Residents found themselves stranded in their homes waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The heat of Italy, Rome and entire city forced in all shared challenges at the Colosseum, an enduring symbol of Rome history, stood the silent weather the raging storm as a rain and wind threatening to erode an instant forkade. Trees turned into rivers and historic positions became waterloo that caused extensive damage of city infrastructure. Italian authorities renovated their epoch-changing response to time of crisis point of action. Emergency service working tirelessly to rescue those trapped in the rising floodwaters and restore essential service. Helicopters, however, over-submerged areas, airlifting residents to safety, though firefighters braved elements to reach those in need. In dramatic turn of events, Sicily finds itself if those in unprecedented storm its nature unleashed any pure upon the picturesque Italian island, where bursts of the exclusive coverage and mythological spectacle deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering hilding the tempest to unparalleled proportions, coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains, leading to widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Our on-the-ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to resilience to floodedness. The historic architecture withstood the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught, the wind of rain. Throughout the island, communities are grappling with the power outage, and the storm force causes significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. Offering the lifeline in these terrifying times, agriculture sector and the backbone of Sicily economy is not immune to the storm impact. Orange in the field and inundated, posing to threat to groups of livelihood. Farmers already facing challenges in recent years are now too late to continue with the aftermath of this natural disaster. As the storm intensifies, rescue operations are underway to ensure the safety of residents trapped in the rising water. Emergency service blocked by the local volunteers to navigate in treacherous conditions to reach those in need. Evacuations are being carried out systemically, proportions to most vulnerable members of the community. Italy's government, in collaboration with the regional authority, is mobilizing rescue to address the crisis. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi has declared a state of emergency in Sicily, unlocking additional funds to rescue and in recovery efforts. The Italian Red Cross and other humanitarian organizations are also coordinated relief operations to provide essential supplies and support the affected communities. While the storm continues to batter Sicily, the resilience and solidarity in the people shine through. Neighbors are leading to helping hand, and the communities are coming together to face and changing poison to natural disaster. the head of the Mediterranean, the Italian island of Sicily has long been seasonally with a sun of detenting coastline and seductive blend of the history and culture. However, this idyllic landscape is recently has been transformed into a dramatic scene of nature fury. A formidable storm marked by resilient rain and fierce winds and lashed Sicily, unveiling the vulnerable of even the most picturesque square of the region with the firms of weather. The storm onslaught was achieved with the meteorologists barely able to predict and intensify before the unleashed foot and made the apex of fury. Winning our streets and town crisis across the Sicily were inundated, transformed urban center into unwelcoming, water-loaded mazes. The rain, increasing unforgiving, pointed the green portrait of the region undesigned by the elements. In Palermo, the Sicilian capital, scenes and the chaos unfolded. Ascent streets and usually burst with the life and aroma of Sicily, crash while deserted save from accessional vehicles struggling against the rising water. The iconic Massimo, a testament of Sicily agriculture, dangerous stood with the silence within to unflooding calamity. Its depths disappeared under murky water. Rural Sicily was not spared entire. The contrast of the tempest of olive groves and vineyards were ravaged. The castles of Sicily, rich agricultural heritage, which helpfully to their fields were submerged, their livelihoods momentarily wiped out the storm war. The damage of the agriculture sector is cornerstone of the Sicily economy is yet to be fully equipped, but ill estimated suggest a significant impact. The storm has also rekindled discussions about the climate change and the increasingly visible impact. Scientists point to rising temperature in the Mediterranean in contrast of more frequent and intense weather patterns. This storm in Sicily is not an isolated incident but horrible to changing climate in respect not geographical barriers. Amidst the chaos have been hearing displays of resilience and solidarity. Communities have together to support provided evacuation support to provide shelters to those displaced.
Porta via la casa il soffiare.
Emergency services have been working tirelessly to making hope in order in face of natural disaster. As Sicily begins to arduous process to recover the storm severe stock remaining of the progly and costs to nature in underscore to urge to sustainable environmental practices to reduce infrastructure capable to withstand in purpose of the changing climate. For now, the people of Sicily look toward the future where the buried the island is much to resilience, ensuring that they are better to prepare when the next storm arrives. Italy is grappling with a severe flooding after days of relentless rain, particularly affected with the northern regions of the country. Torrential downpour have caused rivers to swell, boost their banks and inundate towns and villages. This latest episode of flooding has left authorities struggling to cope with the growing crisis, with thousands of people evacuated from their homes. The region of Emilia-Romagna, Lombardy and Veneto have been among the hardest hit. In Emilia-Romagna, widespread damage to infrastructure have been reported with the roads submerged, bread washed away and homes flooded. Several rivers, including the Po of the Angle, have reached critical levels, forcing emergency services to respond rapidly to prevent further damage. The situation has been compounded by landslides in hilly areas, blocked roads and isolated communities. In Venice, the city is too familiar to high water levels. Flood definitions that put the test. The iconic most barriers designed to protect the city with the rising tides were activated shelters to mitigate the Venice from the significant damage. However, other areas areas in the region were not so fortunate. Many towns and villages in Veneto region saw extensive flooding, with the residents forced to fare the high ground. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed the army to assist the evacuation efforts. Civil protection authorities have urged people in the affected areas to remain cautious to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas is exacerbating the impact of the recent storms. Sicily, Italy's largest island, has been hit one of the strongest storms in the recent times. One of the night of June 27, several weather warnings brought more than 180 mm of rainfall in just 20 hours, more than the region usually received in entire month. This was hit area where Palermo, Catania, Anginda, and Messina were the hardest hit. Authorities confirmed that at least 3 people died as a result of the flooding electrocutions. Among the victims was a 45-year-old man from the town of Biancivaga, who was trapped in this car where sudden flood inundated in low light and presented. In Palermo, emergency service responded more than 14 calls in one night. More than 120 homes were reportedly flooded in historic districts of Calza and Bellero. In the town of Aghern and Mount Etna, landslides to the evacuation more than 17 residents, while the rescue volunteers injured several persons. Power outage affected nearly 30,000 homes. An emergency company, Aeneas, sent dozens of repair crews on the island. Rain severe between Catania and Syracuse was suspended, and yet Falcon Belen Airport, 15 flights were delayed or diverted due to heavy rain and a wind gust exceeded 19 km/h. A severe storm hit Sicily. Italy caused heavy rain, strong winds and widespread flooding in several cities including Palermo and Catania. The extreme weather events, which struck without warning, turned streets into rivers, disrupted transportation and left thousands of residents without electricity and with damaged property. Local authorities issued several weather warnings on the island who received rainfall significantly above the seasonal average. Videos show a dramatic scene where, posted on social media, cars submerged into water, people waist deep water in the flood waters, and emergency service trying to reach stranded cities. Meteorologists report that the storm deployed rapidly over the Mediterranean Sea under the influence of low pressure system combined into high sea surface temperature, and a phenomenon that is becoming increasingly common due to climate change. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire month. Schools and government official and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted to assist the damage and assist in a cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented were flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in town located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storms could become a normal in southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worsened effect of the global warming. As Sicily begins the cleanup, the storm severs and not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability of the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability. Sicily Civil Protection Chief Fabio Cruiser warning that the increasingly unstable Mediterranean climate economy warning from climatologists who said that the sea surface temperature now about 27 Celsius are contributed to the formation of more tropical cyclones now at the Mediterranean. Local media including Roberto Lagola of Palermo and Etnico Tragico of Catania have requested emergency funds of support from the national government. Cleanup efforts are ongoing with more than 1,400 civil protection volunteers and firefighters involved in the cleanup debris and drainage flooded areas. Environmental groups such as Legibird and Ecolson Italy in the speed up infrastructure urged, especially in the southern cities prone on flooding. Experts from the University of the Palermo know that 16% of region drainage system are outdated or inundated from the today extreme weather conditions. As Italy begins a powerful recovery, the message is clear. Climate disasters are no longer a distant possibility. They are not happening now with the devastating consequences.
Madre de Dios. Su, qué desastre. Mira. Ahora mismo en Garachico.
A powerful storm hits Italy caused severe weather conditions that resulted in widespread destruction across the island. The storm, characterized by heavy rain, gale force winds, led to widespread flooding, power outage, and extensive damage to infrastructure. Local authorities report that the crises of Catania and Palermo have been hit by hardest heat. In Catania, streets turned into rivers, and water level rose in 3 during heats. The historic city center, which usually turned to tourists, is now eerily quiet. Emergency service tried to cope with the field. Video shared on social media showed cars submerged and residents walking throughout the waist-deep water. The meteorological service has recorded widespread up to 100 km/h, which further agriculture to situation. Trees have been uprooted, trees have been ripped off buildings, and debris is scattered to roadway, making the trail dangerous. The regional government has issued a red alert, urged residents to stay at home and avoid unnecessary travel. In Palermo, the storm led to similar extent to chaos. In local airport was temporarily closed due to flooding of runway, leading to flight cancellation and delays. public transportation was severely disrupted, leaving passengers stranded. The coastal area persisted to boost with a storm and strong sway, crashing against the coastline, causing erosions to damage the sea definitions. Emergency services are working around the clock to help those in need. The Italian Red Cross has mobilized a team to support the most affected areas, offering shelters and distributing basic necessities. Refuse operations are ongoing, with the reports of people trapped in their homes due to rising water. Helicopters have been deployed to evacuate those to imminent danger. The impact of the storm on agriculture is also a growing concern. Sicily knows the serious growth of vineyard forces potential devastation. Initial estimates suggest significant crops losers, with a could have the long-term economic impact of the region farming communities. Italian Prime Minister Conte has experienced solidarity with the affected residents, pledging government aid to resources to support recovery efforts. He praised the resilience of the Sicilian people and terrorist forced rescues. Meteorologists predict severe weather conditions will continue over the next 24 hours in vast residents to remain vigilant. As Sicily struggles with the aftermath and the disaster of focus to ensure the safety of the residents is beginning to arduous task to rebuilding. The full extent of the damage will become clear in the coming days, but for now Sicily is widespread the storm relentless onslaught. As the sun rose over the devastation streets, scenes of resilience began to emerge. Volunteers from neighboring towns arrived the shovels, pumps, and food supplies. In Catania University, standard formed human chain to help clear debris to home of elderly residents. Church bells rang in solidarity of many communities, helped nightly prayers to injure and displace it. One image of White Sicily flag flying proudly over the flooded town hall became a national symbol of strength. Local media called at a room and declared a state of emergency to obtain additional funds in the rescue to rapid reconstruction. Engineers are now installing bridges and roads, help workers to warn into possible communication flow to overflows, seen and standing water. Meteorologists at Meteo Italia say a storm system may be weakening the residual rains and extended to continue for several more days. The ground is standing with the water. Warning climatologist Dr. Elena Ferraro, events tell additional rainfall could cause new floods and landslides. Environmental activists are calling this storm a wake-up call. This is not just a random error, said Lucia Marinel of Climate Italia. This is the result of decades of neglecting environmental policy of urban planning. We must change now. International support has begun to arrive at the form of offer assistance from the European Union of neighboring countries. Italian celebrities, soccer players, and Pope have been experiencing this solidarity.